Welcome back to a spooky episode of Stream of Thought. Victor's shaking his head right now, but we're on episode number 38 of Stream of Thought, and we begin the conversation. Do you just want to redo this?
Keep going.
You're looking at me as though
I got confused while you were like, this will be our Halloween episode. We didn't talk about anything about Halloween.
No, but so much better, because we talk about Victor's shoelaces and watch bands. But I mean, really, this episode, I feel like, centers a lot around human morality and the relationship that we have with one another and how we deal with that. And it takes various forms, from whether or not what Victor does is stealing. And then we get into...
I can't remember what we talked about after the shoelaces.
we talk about, like, what is it moral?
Oh, Rick's had a little rant that he was embarrassed about.
And then morality in the workplace of, like, how should you treat your bosses?
What's
when
appropriate?
You're not respected?
What's not appropriate? What's stealing? What's not stealing?
I mean, all of it, is it a gray area?
My entire life is in the gray area.
It seems to be that way, but we break it down, and it's really interesting. And then we finally touch on really one of the most interesting topics for me, which is communication in the digital medium. I left a comment on YouTube, of all things, and the results of that ended up being quite surprising. I don't know, Victor?
Just can we talk a little bit about just in being intellectual and what happens, just the difference between
when
conversations.
Try to open up a dialogue.
The difference is when you try and open up a dialogue on the internet versus dialogue in person, pros and cons.
Exactly.
Yes. So with that being said, episode number 38, Stream of Thought! We hope you enjoy.
Boo.
All right, so do you remember when we were finished with the presidential library, and on our way back, they made us move cars, and so the conductor's like, hey, next time you see me, I'll comp you a free ride.
Totally, yeah.
So I didn't see him, but I saw the other guy who we were talking with about the YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah.
And so when I was on the train the other day, I was like, hey, you have the YouTube channel, you remember me? I let him know, your buddy said you comp me a ride. He's like, oh, yeah, so I got a free ride on the train the other day.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So that was pretty fun.
Yeah.
It looked like he recognized me, but he didn't really know what I was talking about. So it kind of seemed like he was just kind of like, yeah, making you purchase a ticket or punch your 10 ride. It's not worth me trying to comprehend what it is you're telling me. So I'm just going to say,
so you don't think that he made the full connection, or do you
I don't think he did. He
point?
recognized me, but I don't think he knew what I was talking about.
Well, I'm kind of actually surprised that you
followed through with that,
following up on that, because that seems, like it would take a little bit of intentional foresight. As I'm gonna search out this person and be like,
oh, well, I
fulfill the pact that we had formed on that special night down in Chicago.
Yeah, I mean, I had an opportunity for a free ride, so I took it.
Hey, I subbed him, so.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
Of course. Hey, if there's another small YouTuber out there, I'd totally support that attitude.
Another thing that I've noticed is I got back into wearing a wristwatch.
Mm-hmm.
And the other day I didn't have it, and to see what time it was, I took my wrist up. I was like, oh, I don't have my watch on. And I have to say, it is pretty nice just, oh, I need to know what time it is? Let me just lift up my hand instead of taking out my phone and looking at my phone to see what time it is.
Yeah.
It's a little refreshing, I should say. And a lot of people comment on it, because I've had this for a long time, but I just haven't worn it. As you can see,
so it's a little it's a pretty thin.
It's a little
plastic
digital Casio, and people are always like, "Is that a calculator?" I'm like, "No," because it's so it's just so retro. People don't wear these digital watches, you know.
No.
They wear the fake Rolexes,
Hey.
It's got the time, it's got the day and the date. You hit mode, you can set an alarm. Hit it again, you got a stopwatch.
Yeah, I mean, they're super reliable for sure.
You know, it's just great. It's just super simple, and I love it.
Well, and I mean, that's one of those things that I have fallen out of the habit of, but it's when you have a watch, it makes the world of difference. It really does.
I was about to say, when you have a watch, endless possibilities.
Endless possibilities. Yeah, well, and it becomes habit too, so you don't really even think about it, but here's the thing: when I stopped wearing a watch, it's because the battery in my watch died, and I just haven't. I've been too lazy to replace it. But every time I keep thinking about it, that I have to pull out my phone and look at the time. I keep thinking, how nice would it be to like just glance at my wrist, and not have to worry about any of that. Plus, it's a nice looking fake Rolex, so I like it. It's classy. Like it adds to the attire as well. Yeah. It's a very nice accessory.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that your battery died because these, I believe it said a 5-year battery life. I got this summer 2013 when I went to Colorado to do backpacking, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to rely on my cell phone for service, which I could tell the time still, but you know, when you're out backpacking, it's just better to have a little wristwatch. Anyway, funny story. Over time, so I got this 2013, June 2013, like January or February 2015, I noticed it had a small tear. And I was like, what the heck? And then one day, it just tore off where the little holes are. I was like, what the heck? I was really disappointed. And what
tore?
This did right here.
Oh, so
where the holes are, the strap, yeah.
It was like a faux leather strap? Or
no, it's rubber. Give it a feel. It's rubber.
Oh, so this ended up.
Yeah, there was a little tear, and I was like, uh-oh. Okay. And then one time, something caught on it, and it just tore off. And I was like, what the hell? Because I really, really liked this watch. So for, the longest time, at least a year, I just didn't have it. Yeah. And I would go back to Walmart to see if they had this same watch, which is where I got it from. And I just couldn't find it. I just couldn't find it. And they had this version, but it was bigger, but I wanted the smaller size. And I'm looking, and I'm looking, and I'm looking. I'm just thinking to myself, one, I can't believe they don't have this. Two, I can't believe that, only after a couple years, it just randomly tore off.
Yeah.
There was a little tear. It's not like I slid my hand against something and just ripped off. Like, there was a little tear. Once it tore to the hole, it was like half torn off. And then after a while, it caught something and completely tore, which it wouldn't have torn if it was just completely fine in the first place. Mm-hmm. Which I believe maybe it was starting to wear and tear because of how many times I just never took it off. Just how many times it would be exposed to water, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. But it's water resistant. I don't know. Anyway, did a little wheelin' dealin' on my own, and I found the watch at Walmart again. I was like, wow, I can't believe it. I'm definitely buying this thing. So I buy the watch, right? I buy the watch, and I think to myself, you know what? This watch should have lasted longer than it did. So I swapped them out, bro. I swapped them out and returned the watch that was shitty.
Really?
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, dude. So this is a guy.
How do you feel about that?
I don't give a shit.
Okay.
I don't give a shit at all. I swapped them out for sure.
No, that's fair.
But now I got this watch.
Well, so and that's the thing too, is that I find that I'm not one of those people. Do you buy clothes on a regular basis?
Nope.
I don't know.
I do not. I buy clothes maybe once a year.
Yeah, same here. Maybe even less than that. Is once I have clothes, unless they start developing holes in them, I feel as though they are legitimate attire, and I don't need more than a certain amount, right?
Yes.
Like, it's not like I need 3 dressers full of shirts or something like that.
Yes.
Plus, there's the additional, like, people for holidays or birthdays always buy you clothes or T-shirts or, like, stuff that,
if you buy the right clothes, they're not going to go out of style.
No.
For example, my go-to shirts are V-necks, and I have some sweaters, and I have some V-neck sweaters. Yeah. I have the same sweaters that I've worn for 5 or 6 years.
Never go out of style.
Me?
V-necks.
No, they're great.
You've always worn V-necks.
What am I supposed to wear? A crew neck? Are you kidding me? I'm not wearing that. I know. You have one. I know.
Right. And I look so much better than you.
No. Crew necks? Yeah, right. Anyway, continue.
So, yeah, but the one thing that, and I'm sure this is like a universal problem that most people have, is the sock issue of, I don't know what it is, if there's this magical portal that exists in like an alternative universe that just doesn't like socks, but man, I don't know what it is. I could buy a full pack of socks within 6 months. I got like 2 of them left.
Mm-hmm. I know.
It's insane. I don't I literally don't know where they disappeared to. They can't like walk away on their own, but it's one of those unsolved mysteries that I mean, and it's a reoccurring thing over the course of my life, and I feel like a lot of people have experienced this
Same
too,
thing with me.
where it doesn't matter. I mean, this started at like 13 years old. I've just had the mystery of the constantly vanishing socks.
Yes.
And then, like, you have the socks that you end up keeping, like those 2 that remain from that entire pack, and you just wear them over and over again, and they get holes in the next, like, 4 months, and you're like, well, damn, I need a new pack of socks. So you're just constantly going through this vicious cycle of just burning through socks. There has got to be an easier way, man.
That happens to me, too, and I don't understand it, because I'm pretty good about making sure I don't leave things in the washer or dryer.
You of all people, you're a pretty meticulous person.
And I'm just like, where do these things go? I don't understand. But it's a universal thing, I feel like. Everyone's sock reserves end up diminishing somehow. I agree.
And it's one of those great mysteries of life. But yeah, man, when it comes to finding replacements, I am an absolute cheap ass and a procrastinator when it comes to, like, I have my Bluetooth headphones that have been in Minnesota for a year. I haven't bought a replacement pack because I'm heading up to Minnesota in like 3 weeks, and I'm planning on getting it then. And I really hope that it hasn't, like, you know, destroyed the internal battery or anything like that, because I love those pair.
Speaking of replacements, it's funny because I had these shoes, these leather Clark shoes, and I had them for 4 or 5 years. And I went to this party, and after a while, the laces that get worn down, and the laces got worn down, and I was at this party, and the floor was really sticky, and I remember thinking to myself, like, what am I doing here? I'm at my friend's house party, and I feel like I'm in college again. There's just super loud music, alcohol everywhere, the floor is sticky, people are going nuts. I'm just like, I think I'm getting a little too old for this. Anyway, I lift up my foot, but because of the stickiness, it holds my foot to the floor, and I break the lace as I bring my foot up. Now, I temporarily retied the lace together, and I've tried using hot glue and everything for the longest time.
Where'd the lace break?
I have to show it to you. It's weird because it's not laces that intertwine a whole bunch. It's just a very simple shoe with laces that just literally intertwine 2 times.
Okay.
So it's like right there. And so I tie them, and I've tried hot glue, and then I think the other shoe eventually over time. And it was a temporary solution. Yeah. It worked. Yeah. And then after a while, it broke again. It's like, I can't do this. And in that time, I've looked for laces that are the same size in terms of length and thickness. I can't find them. I can't find them anywhere. And these are for leather shoes, so I need dark, round laces. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah, to match.
And I can't find them. I go to Walmart. I go to JCPenney. I go to Kohl's. I look online. I can't find anything.
Well, that's odd.
But I'm at Kohl's, and I'm walking around, and I take a look at this pair of shoes that are on display, and I think to myself, you know what? The laces on those display shoes might work. So I take the laces out of the display shoes, right?
Yeah.
And then I walk away, and then I come back and take the laces out of the second shoe, and I just take them and I put them in my pocket and walk out.
Oh, my goodness. I feel like we need to have a conversation on what your boundaries are when it comes to following or betting the rules. This is very fascinating.
Okay, I needed some laces. They had them.
See, that is a very fascinating thing to do. As a recovering gambling addict, I feel as though my life was made up of sort of like the gray areas of life. Of like, well, it's not technically like illegal or wrong or like I'm doing something morally bankrupt, but
I'm not.
But it's not. But I cannot be morally justified.
But I'm not
necessarily.
Here's the thing, though. I'm not sitting there thinking to myself, well, this, well, that. My thought is, yo, I see some laces. I'm gonna take those. And I just take them because the store's not going to miss them.
What's the boundary?
There is no boundary, bro. Yeah, I needed laces. Oh, look. The display shoe.
Look, there's a cash register open.
No, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that type of stuff.
Well, yeah, but where's the boundary between the cash register and the shoelaces? What, like, if you see, like, what, I mean, where do you draw that personal line? Or is that gray area of, like, if the perfect opportunity presents itself, anything's on the table? Like, say the zombie apocalypse opens. Yeah, all right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm cool with it. I'm not just going to take the money.
And that's why I asked, too, is because you're a pretty straight-laced person. It's not like you go around, like, trying to manipulate.
I am now.
It's not like you go around trying to like bend the rules or be like you don't feel morally like you have a moral center and doing these sort of things on the periphery don't interfere with that moral justification that you live your life around. So it's very interesting to me because it's like, yes, I mean, I totally agree with you that, I mean, I would probably be in the same boat of if I was that type of person to be like, I need new shoelaces.
Yeah.
Let's swap them out. But like, where does that line, like, where does it get into that? Like, is there an iffy area or like because it felt like you were totally fine returning your watch. In the broken watch, or switching out the shoes that were in the store, like how much further in the center do we have to go down this rabbit hole before we find where that brick wall is?
We'll find out. I don't know. I'm trying to think of some other scenarios that are similar.
Of where you've decided, this is a little too far, or had that question, like it's not even worth it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I did once. I used to steal the chromies when I was in 6th grade. You know, the little chrome for the wheels.
Oh, yes.
I used to take those when I was in 6th grade. Looking back, that was just like, what was I doing? It was just something
a lot
to do.
of kids, yeah. I mean, that's not really unnatural or anything. But I'm saying, like, in your adult life, in your post-18-year-old age.
I did need at one point some of the plastic tire caps, you know, for my car because I think one or two they had fallen off or something, and I just needed some. And at a previous job, there was like a trailer that had some that was just sitting there. You could tell that never was used. This thing was rusted. The tires were flat. I'm like, this thing's not fucking using them. So I screwed the two of them off and put them on my car.
Wait, where were these?
These were at the Park District. Yeah. But this is off of a trailer that was literally sitting there. I've worked there for, a few years. It hasn't moved. It's rusted. The tires are flat.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I'm just like, I mean, this thing's not used. Yeah, so I just took them.
Yeah, no one will be missing that kind of thing. It's like not in active use.
Yeah.
Is that, maybe that's your criteria, that as long as it doesn't affect another human being.
I wouldn't, if there were a pair of shoes at someone's house, I'm not going to straight up actually...
That would be hilarious.
I might do that. I might do that.
If you walked
I might do that.
It's like, dude, I'm going to put locks on all my shoes now.
But they were displayed because my thought process was, these are shoes on display. They're not going to sell them because obviously they have an inventory, or I don't know what happens to these shoes. But I know these laces aren't being utilized, so I'm going to take them because I need them. I'm not going to take cash, you know what I'm saying? But
yeah, but it's so interesting.
I don't ask permission.
Like, yes, I know, and better to ask permission. But I mean, technically, do you consider what you're doing illegal?
No, hell no.
Okay, all right. So maybe.
And if I did, whatever. I don't give a fuck. I need the fucking laces.
So proportionality. It's not like you're taking the shoes. You're just taking, laces that probably took maybe 15 cents to manufacture.
Yeah.
And that honestly are not going to be missed because they're going to end up getting replaced or thrown out or like whatever. Because I mean, shoes are just rotating, especially at places like that where
like if I work at a shoe factory, I'm not gonna like steal laces and like all this crazy shit. Like this is an isolated incident.
No, absolutely.
You know what I'm
it's
saying?
like need based, sort of
like at the grocery store, I don't like purposely break shit so I can like eat the can. You know what I'm saying? Like I don't do that.
Exactly. It's not done with malicious intent. It's more the convenience factor. Without inconveniencing more.
But if someone were to say to me like, Victor, what you did was stealing, I'd say, fuck off. I need the laces. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, because you've worked through the moral equation and you've come down on the fact that it's not an immoral act, and so it doesn't matter what other people are going to tell you.
Yeah,
it's like you have made the determination based on all the factors relevant to your decision, even if you're not consciously thinking about it at the time. Like in hindsight, you will find a way to be able to justify that action. Because I mean, proportionally, I think. Yeah, I don't know. I think you make a very reasonable argument in this conversation because
if you were desperate for laces, what would you have done?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, well, yeah. in my
got in touch with your inner bad boy and just take the laces.
In my new life, in the life that I'm living post 2016.
Yeah.
No, I would never do that. I feel as though like my moral rigidity is sort of, I'm a little more morally rigid, I think, than I was prior to that.
Yeah.
But prior to 2016, prior to my whole like issues, like when I was living a good and righteous life, yes, I probably would have also followed that path.
When the day that happened, I had gone to my improv class, and during the class, we, at the end of class or beginning or something, we tell like what we've done for the week or something like that. And I told that story, dude. They were laughing their asses off. They thought that shit was so funny. And then we were doing a scene, and somehow it got brought up like person that didn't have any shoes or had shoes but didn't have, somehow they incorporated that into a scene, dude. It was so funny.
Well, and that's the thing too, is that it's such an unusual circumstance that it's not like something you hear every day. Like, this dude walked into a store and switched out laces.
It is goofy, yeah.
It is kind of goofy.
It's goofy.
It's abstract thinking.
Yeah. But yeah, I can't remember. I don't think I'm trying to think of other instances. One time, actually, at like Sam Ash, when I was living in Indianapolis, I needed a chart that had piano chords on it. So I like bought this book. It was like $16. I was like, I don't need the fucking book. All I need is one page. So I like made a photocopy at work and then returned the book the next day.
That was one of those things too, especially when I was in college. That's another one of those moral gray areas that I might actually reconsider. Like, I don't know, because like books for college and grad school are effing expensive, hundreds and hundreds of effing dollars, and you know this too. And it's like, if a class is going to make you purchase a $120 textbook and you're only going to use 3 or 4 pages out of there, I mean, I'm going to find a way around that to not spend the $120 effing dollars.
I did that shit too.
It's like, I mean, for me, that even today I think would still be morally justifiable in my eyes, because it's absurd that you would spend so much.
That's a fucking racket, dude.
Yeah, and I feel like that's
college
behavior
textbooks
on the side of those
that
producing
is
the
literature. Racket.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, so much money is wasted.
Yeah,
and just think about how much it's actually used. I mean,
I would take books. I'd straight up swipe them from the bookstore at the end of the year. I'd sneak them back in on the shelf. Not all of them, some of them. Yeah. Dude, this just doesn't end with me, dude. When there's a trigger, dude, I guarantee I've got plenty more of these stories.
Oh, I like this. We're heading down the rabbit hole.
But yeah, I did that too for I got to say like at least several $100s with the books.
Yeah.
Just borrow them for the school year and then bring them back. Yeah.
And that's one of those gray areas that I'm like, I'm honestly not too outraged about. I don't think that too many people could get morally outraged about a situation like that, because anybody who's been in that position understands the sort of like complications that go into a situation like that. It's
like, you ever watch the movie Office Space?
Oh yeah.
When they just take fractions of a penny and funnel it into a different account, and all of a sudden they got like hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Billions of dollars.
It's not stealing. It's like, but you're taking something that's not yours. Yes, but no, it's not stealing. Exactly. That's what stealing is.
Yes. And that, I think that, the Office Space analogy right there, I think, is the conundrum that we find ourselves in. Mm-hmm. Is where is that fraction of a penny add up to $1 billion? Yeah. Like, where is that threshold? Right? Because they probably wouldn't have felt so bad if it had only added up to tens of thousands of dollars from, but billions of dollars suddenly is like, oh my god,
yeah, they're like,
that's
oh,
real
shit.
money kind of thing.
They misplaced the decimal.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, is when we head into these sort of things, we don't know what we're sort of getting into. Because, like, say you had been spotted, like, swiping those books out of the,
right.
What the fuck would have happened? You don't know. I mean, but you probably would have been like, I don't know, something not good.
Part of it, though, too, is a little bit of the adrenaline. Like, all right, it's go time.
That's, I think, why my brother did the shit that
he did.
The adrenaline rush, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. You need shit.
It's whatever.
That's borrowing.
The moral. And, it's all perspective, too.
It is.
It's like, when you're in the position, you know the context, you know the situation. Like, part of it, too, is acknowledging that maybe you don't know the full situation. But when you make those instantaneous decisions, they're done. Like you make them, you do what you do, and you move
on. Just to change gears, today when I was at work, usually I just ready to leave, like most of the time. But I was just like getting shit done all day today, and I was just like organizing one thing after another, and I was ready to leave at 3, but I still had some things I needed to finish. So I was like, okay, I don't want to. I wasn't pissed that I was still at work. I was like, okay, like I'll get this thing done, but it was like I had a sense of awareness, like, oh wow, like right now I just have this real sense of pride in my work that I'm getting done, like organizing, filling, getting things done.
Yeah,
and it was just like. I could have left, but if I left early, then I would have known like these little things wouldn't have gotten done, and it would have really bothered me. Mm-hmm. And so I went out of my way to do a couple extra things, and then I drew the line like, okay, I'm stopping here, and I'm wiping my hands clean. I'm not doing this other stuff. But I left today just thinking to myself like, man, I got a lot of stuff done today, and it felt great.
Well, awesome, man. I'm glad to hear that. Was there something? Was there a direction we're leading?
No, just like a sense of pride in getting a solid day's work done. Because other times I'm like, after a few hours, I'm over. Other times I'm like over it. I'm like, I don't even give a shit if this work is sloppy. I'm bouncing. I'm out of here. It's like I can't totally pinpoint why today I was just like super into it, and other days I'm like, I don't give a fuck. You guys finish this later. I'm out.
I can totally relate. Like when it comes to drywall stuff, I mean, there are certain days where I feel like I'm doing awesome and this is going to be perfection. Like I'm going to stay with Ray until like 7 o'clock if we have to. And then there are other days where I'm just like, I just don't fucking care. Like I just want to get this done, get it over with, and be done. Like start the next day fresh, like whatever. But there's just no more energy left, and it's interesting because it fluctuates. But those days where you have that energy is just like. You feel so great afterwards because you're like, I fulfilled, what I set out to do, whatever capacity that is. And it's like, I went above and beyond, I sort of invested my time and energy and, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No, not at all. But on the flip side too, when I don't complete something and I'm like, I'm so over it and I leave, like, I don't think twice about like, oh man, maybe I should have done this. Or I don't care at all. And it doesn't bother me and I don't lose any sleep over it.
And I think that too, I think is a greater like problem when it comes to, like taking ownership of what you're doing. Cause I feel like a lot of people are in your boat where they leave work and they're done with the work, it's off their plate. It's not their responsibility. And I don't know, man. I feel like the best days that I have is where I feel like I have that sense of ownership where I have not just sort of control over my environment and the ability to like get things done, but also the ability for others to acknowledge my work, right? It's not like a boasting thing, but it's like I have the ability to be a effective employee, and other people have the ability to see me as an effective employee. I feel like those are the best days, is like where you feel like you're doing something great, and you also simultaneously feel like other people are able to see you doing something great as well. And it's like, yes, I am valued as a human being, not just for what I'm doing, but for the fact that around me I can sort of see the ripple effects that other people notice that I have extended that energy into, whatever it is I'm doing.
Have you ever had a job where you always felt like, I don't give a shit about this? Or is it always been, man. Or has it always been any job where there's days that are great, days that aren't, or...
You know what? I'll be totally honest and say that I have a bit of an ego problem when it comes to working, in the sense that I feel as though I need to be respected as a human being, because if you don't want me, like I am fine with that, but don't expect me to sort of give you back the expectation. Like it's a two-way road. Like for me, employment has always been a two-way road. The effort that I extend forward is always mirrored by the respect that's bounced back to me. So like mutuality, that's like the thing that has always grounded me in my work environment. And I'll say I've had one job where that sort of come into conflict, and I felt some sort of anxiety about not being respected or it not being a mutual like thing. But that was back in college. Generally speaking, everything that I've done, mostly I've worked for nonprofits though, so it's not necessarily like it's a hostile work environment. But looking back, I was a cashier at Target back in college, and it was one of those things where it was a summer job. I was graduating. I was getting ready to go off to Union Seminary in New York, and so I was only going to be there for like 3 months.
Yeah.
And so I get there. I don't know. I've never had a blue-collar type job up to this point, so to speak, if you're counting cashier as, blue-collar work. And so, but I've never had like just a basic employment. It's always been some sort of, interning for caucuses or like volunteering, interning at the church. It's always been something that's been very intentional or specific to my job field. So this is the first like general like employment
job,
yeah. And I head into that thinking of the same mutuality that I've experienced in nonprofits, and it's like, and so here's what happened: is 2 months into my employment at Target, I end up getting promoted. Like I get employee of the month a month after I get hired. And all I'm doing is showing up on time, fulfilling my duties, making sure, like, being proactive and, like, making sure the shelves are, like, stocked and all that. Like, helping out colleagues and stuff. Like, basic stuff that I have always done in my interactions with people prior to this point. And I'm thinking, why doesn't everyone out? Like, why am I getting rewarded for simply being, like, a person, right? Like, a genuine, compassionate person. But, so 2 months in, they end up giving me this like plaque or whatever of employee of the, I think it was employee of the week actually, employee of the week, and they promote me to electronics to co-lead manage the electronics section, and it's like 2 months in, and 1 week after that, I'm like, crap, like I have to leave for New York, but I didn't tell them this ahead of time, and so there's that like gray ground of like I'm feeling personal guilt because they're saying like you're a great employee, like we want to reward you, like we're moving you up like as quickly as we can, like we're saying you're a great employee, like we love your work ethic and all this sort of stuff, and so I'm feeling torn about this, and I'm like, oh God, I've got like 6 weeks until I've got to leave, go back to Chicago, get ready to go to New York, and I'm working in Des Moines at the time, and so a week into co-managing the electronics department, I tell my supervisor that I am going to be leaving. 2 days later, my schedule has changed. I'm back at cashier, and my hours are reduced or something like that. And so, so here's my response. As somebody who has, like I said, never been in normal employment, and who understands the work relationship to be a mutual thing of like, don't disrespect me, and I will do everything in my power to give you what you want. But if you disrespect me, I will subtly.
There will be backlash.
I will find a subversive way to indicate my displeasure, and so I just didn't show up to work for the next 2 days, and then I showed up the following day, and I told them, I said, oh, like. I totally, because they were like, oh, we thought you just left. I'm like, oh no, like I just I was at cashier and you guys moved me around, and so my schedule like changed a lot this past week. So I didn't know what my work schedule was this week. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's okay. And then they just like rearranged my work schedule for the next like 3 weeks or something.
They give you more hours?
They returned my hours to normal and all of that. But that was kind of my, oh yeah, you know what? As I'm talking, I'm thinking about times that I've sort of been inappropriate in the workplace.
That was one of them.
that was one of them, but not as bad. Not as bad as the Iowa caucuses.
Oh, tell me about this for sure.
Holy shit! I actually don't think I read about this too much in my book, but it was probably the seminal moment. It was the fulcrum, the changing point in my perception of politics and working in politics.
Is this before or after you met Joe Biden?
This was after, and I was working for his campaign.
Okay.
I was working for his campaign, and it was November or something like that, prior to the Iowa caucuses.
Okay.
And long story short, I mean, it's a political campaign. A political campaign in any particular area lasts approximately 3 to 6 months, depending on the importance of it. Des Moines, Iowa, first in the nation, very important, 6-month campaign. And so I was working for the campaign for about 6 months. And I was promised all of these incredible things. I was promised business cards, never got. I was promised a chance to meet and have a photo op with Joe Biden as a staff intern, never got. I was promised the opportunity to like be in on some of the meetings to schedule campaign events. I was promised the opportunity to go in advanced planning. None of these things that I was promised ever came to fruition. And I'm working here for like 3 or 4 months, working my ass off, basically doing cold calling to Iowa voters in the early winter months where they've already gotten about a dozen calls from all these other campaigns trying to get their votes. And here I'm basically calling them and recalling them and recalling them to check what their status is on who they're deciding to support in the upcoming caucus. So I'm like, all I'm doing is calling people who don't want to be called. Nothing, not a single ounce of what they had promised came true. And the breaking point came when I actually preached on this once. It was a campaign event where Joe Biden himself was going to be in town, which was a big deal. Like he, maybe had a dozen things around the Des Moines area that we could be a part of. He was going to be in town for this event, and we were all supposed to meet at the campaign headquarters, which was about an hour commute for me. I had to take the bus and then walk about 2 miles to this abandoned shopping mall where everyone was supposed to convene in the early Saturday morning and carpool to this event location about 2 hours away.
Jeez.
So I'm up at 6 o'clock getting ready to go. We're all supposed to meet there at 8:30. Get on the bus, get changed. I'm in my suit and everything. Get on the bus. It's snowing in late November. And so I'm just like, shit, I got a 2-mile walk in the snow. Get to this. I get to the strip mall where our campaign headquarters is. Not a single car in the parking lot.
Are there people there?
It is maybe like 7:45, so there's still supposed to be 45 minutes before we're all supposed to leave. Not a single person's there. The lights of the campaign office are off. No one.
Wow.
And I'm there 45 minutes. And so I'm like, oh no. Like, oh no. Like, there's one of two things that could be possible here. I'm really hoping. And so I call up Rena, who is the person who recruited me, and I ask her, hey, I know we have this campaign event that we're all supposed to meet at the office at 8:34. Like, what's going on? She's like, and I hear a bunch of noise in the background. I'm like, oh, shit. And she's like, oh, well, we all decided to meet like an hour and a half earlier and take off. No one told you? And I said, no one told me. And she's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, well, where are you now? And I'm like, I'm at the campaign office. She's like, oh, I'm sorry. We're at the event right now. It would take like an hour and a half for somebody to come and pick you up. Like, I don't think we can do that. And I'm just like, well, then what am I supposed to do? She's like, there's not really anything you can do. I'm just like, are you fucking kidding me? I was pissed as shit. That was another day that I had also...
Well, that day, everyone got a photo op and met Joe Biden and all these other major players, or
more or less. I mean, it was a great opportunity to get super involved in the intricacies of setting up a campaign, and it was my first big one. And so I end up coming in. I skip like 2 days of coming in just because I'm pissed, and I'm just like, fuck you kind of attitude. Yeah. And I come in, and I'm still fuming, and my boss, who's the regional campaign director, so he's like, he's relatively big up in the campaign structure, and not the kind of guy who you want to like confront or anything like that. But I am just in this like steely mood of like, don't you fucking talk to me. Like I'm gonna come in, I'm gonna do my job, but don't you? And so he's like, oh Rick's like, he's like, hey Rick's, how's it going? Like not even thinking about anything. I'm like, fine. He's like, hey, what's up? And then I just unload on him, and I start like in front of everyone. I'm just like, I can't remember what I say. I kind of blacked out during this period. But
once the first few words come out, you were just going and going and going and going.
I go on. It wasn't a long rant or anything like that, but it was very snappy and it was very inappropriate. It was very rude in full view of everyone else who was working in the campaign, paid staffers and all that. And after I get done, he's like, "Can I see you in the room next door?" Which is like this huge airport hangar type thing, like the loading bay. And he's like, so, under normal circumstances, what you just did right now, I would fire you on the spot. And I'm just like, okay. And he's like, but I want to try and understand because like you've been a hard worker and you've never raised complaints and like what is going on. And so I just like break down and I'm just like
I just fucking told you what's going on.
No, well, I explained to him. It's like I am like pouring my heart and soul into this campaign. Like I've been promised all these, and like literally like tears start running down my face, and I was just like I can't control my emotions.
Yeah.
I get very emotional in instances like that. And after he listened to me, he's just like, okay, like I hear what you say, and we'll try to have better communication in the future, but just don't do that again. And that was the end of it. And so like I feel like I have always in instances of like work because that will be my general like I will withdraw if I'm disrespected. I will withdraw and then reapproach with just no emotion. Like and I tend to be a very a friendly like interpersonal type of person when I'm working with people. I like to develop a rapport. And so if I'm disrespected, I will withdraw and then like reapproach with just like I'm drawing this like invisible boundary of I'm gonna do my shit and get out of here. Like, don't you fucking talk to me. Otherwise, you're gonna hear what I have to say. Like that was my general attitude towards any instance. And that I think is the beauty of working in a non-industrial type job is that it's all relational, right? Like you can get away with basically murder and almost murder and still as long as you're able to have a conversation with a person and be able to sort of explain your perspective. Like my approach not the most helpful. I have to say I will acknowledge,
oh man,
if I had a chance to redo those instances I probably would handle it in a slightly different manner, knowing what I know now. But in the moment, it was kind of like, this is justified. Like you're taking off shoelaces or replacing the watch. It's justified, and so I don't necessarily feel bad about it.
It's funny that you mention all that because I've come extremely close to just going on a tirade in this rant several times, though, at like especially at the restaurant. Because I couldn't get there until 5 p.m. Most people get there at 4. And in the summer, the money making is the outside sections. And so many times I would come in and I wouldn't have an outside section. I would tell the manager like, hey, I know I can't come until 5, but like it's been a few shifts where I haven't been outside section. It'd be really great if I could get an outside section for sure. And he's like, okay, sure. I come in, not outside. And I just go 0 to 100 in a heartbeat. And I would tell the hosts too. I'd tell them like, "Hey, what's going on?" And so I'd come in another time and be like, "What the fuck is this?" And Lydia, I'm sorry, no, Victor, I put you in an outside section and then Angel changed it, and I'm just like, "What the fuck?" And I'm just so pissed. And so what I do is in my head, I just play out the scenario in my head and I play out everything that I'm gonna say and just let them have it and just be so unforgiving and just shove it down their throats and just submission. Stab them and fucking twist it and just pummel them into the ground and stomp and stomp and stomp and just continue stomping and just really let them have it.
Absolutely.
And every time I don't do it,
the angels
and
of your
every time I look back and I'm really happy that I didn't do it.
Yeah. Restraint is an amazing, a spectacular thing.
Oh man,
and I feel like restraint. I think that brings us perfectly to a topic that I've actually been really kind of eager to get to, just because I want to hear your feedback. So this has to do with it's kind of on the same topic, but we'll take a 45-degree angle turn into this conversation. Right. So I'm on YouTube all the time, right? Mm-hmm. And I like small independent creators and follow some of the bigger like YouTube personalities. And one of the ones that I follow on a regular basis is Philip DeFranco, who I don't know if you've heard that name at all.
It sounds familiar.
Philip DeFranco is basically the face of news YouTube. So he does news from the perspective of somebody who is not controlled by corporate interests.
Okay.
So he's very independent. He'll basically say what he thinks. May not be PC all the time, maybe whatever, but he'll give his take on the controversies of the day. And I find him entertaining. I find him engaging. And his whole point is to be like, leave a comment. This is all about a conversation. Let us know what you think. And so, I comment maybe once every 2 months or something like that, just because I feel like what's the harm in kind of doing that. Never have gotten anyone to read any of my comments before. And so a topic of conversation comes up on Thursday, I think it was, I think on Thursday, and it's an issue about race, which I'm very familiar about, and it has to do with the fact of his whole point of the story was there was a black person who was criticizing a white person for not understanding racism. Like, that was generally the summary.
Okay.
And I put it in that terms, in that particular term, even though that might not necessarily be how Philip DeFranco himself might articulate it. But that's how I perceived the conversation, is that black person yelling at a white person, they don't understand discrimination and racism. And Philip DeFranco's argument, and generally his audience, is one of, well, like, you know, anyone can discriminate against anyone else. It's not necessarily a race thing. And so I decided to comment. And this is one of those videos where, it's just, I feel like I'll just put it out here. So here's my response to the issue of discrimination.
And this is a comment, for clarification, in response to the video, not somebody else's comment.
No, this is just my own comment that I leave. And he's posted it like 30 minutes. Like, he had just posted it further. So it's a fresh comment.
Got it.
And so here's my response. I say, I don't know. I'm a straight white guy, and I don't mind being told to shut up by anyone in the black community. I don't take offense. I acknowledge the pain and try to understand. Pride and ego are secondary to potential growth for me. What are your thoughts of that response?
Read it again, please.
So this
is what you're saying.
So the context,
you're saying, I'm a straight white guy. I don't feel offended when, somebody else tells me, hey, this is why you should.
If a black person tells me that they feel discriminated against in their daily lives, I've learned enough to know that I should listen to their experience, because as I'm not black,
right?
I don't.
You need to understand their
and
point
so
of
that
view.
was the spirit of my comment, right? Like, does that make
yes?
sense? Like,
that totally resonates, and I completely understand with what you're saying, because so many times we've talked about something, and I'll make a comment, and you say there is nothing wrong with that perspective that you just verbalized. However, look at it through this lens. And then I'm like, oh, because I'm a straight white guy, I don't even think to view it through this other lens over here. So I think your comment is perfectly legitimate and totally not, no one should take offense at it. I think it's a great way to start a conversation.
So you want to hear some of the responses?
Sure.
All right. So the first response is, what pain? Not one person of the last 2 generations has any ties to slavery or civil rights denials. They are riding on the coattails of their grandparents and possibly their great-grandparents' struggles and conflicts. If you feel pain for this, you are insane. Next comment, pushover, huh? Next comment, ugh, bro, please, man. Shut up and don't be a wimp. I'm a black woman and you haven't oppressed me. You shouldn't just take people wanting to be victim lying down. Next comment. Stop accepting that shit. You didn't cause anything. You don't owe anybody anything. Nobody does. This is coming from a black man. Next comment. Weird. I usually get shot at. I'm black, by the way, but I'm not a victim. I'm planning to move away from the neighborhood soon. Next comment. And blacks have been killing whites until recently as well. No hands are clean. Don't feel bad if you didn't do anything. Next comment. Not one person in the last 2... just quoted something. Next comment. You don't need to feel pain to understand them. Your pain is not their pain, and vice versa. Feeling pain for black people just develops emptiness inside yourself. You'll grow to feel worthless as a human being that bleeds the same color they bleed. It's not healthy for you. Please seek help. Please. Next comment. You make me sick, and I'm a black man. You are a weak man. Next comment. Realizes you are being sarcastic. Removes like. Next comment. Personal growth isn't the same as bending over backwards for hypocrites. Ego literally has nothing to do with it, and it still doesn't actually help the conversation, since, you can't talk if you always shut up when you're told. Nice virtue signaling, though.
The problem with leaving comments...
It goes on and on.
The problem with leaving comments is that any idiot can leave them.
Well, yeah, but I mean, this is his audience. Like, this is his core base. Like, this is the general sentiment that you get throughout the comments. And I think what that made me realize was just, it's sort of this sad realization of just the cesspool of, like, ideology that is on social media and places like YouTube, where it's like, they're not really interested in a conversation or a dialogue or, advancing their
You
own
can tell
perspectives.
immediately that a lot of those comments aren't necessarily in response to what you were saying as they are so much as just an opportunity for them to voice their opinion regardless of what it is that they read. You know
I think that's a very astute perception, and I think that's the thing that probably was highlighted the most for me is that, like, it doesn't necessarily matter what I say. Like, if I use buzzwords like I'm a white man who feels some sort of empathy for the black experience, that is instantly as you are a pathetic, weak-minded liberal who will take it up the butt for your social justice warrior causes. And it's very interesting to me as somebody who like totally understands. And like even in those comments, I totally understand, what those people are saying. It's not relevant to what I was trying to convey.
Yeah.
But I can understand the core message of what they were trying to get at. And it's just very fascinating to me. That's like, that itself, I think, reveals to me the nature of the cesspool that is the internet. And that is, there's no, like, it's a place for you to post your opinion, but it's not a place for you to grow. Like, you got to do your growing in your personal life. You can't, I mean, if you spend all your time sort of vomiting your opinions on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or like whatever the case is, all you like all you're doing is making yourself sick. Like, you're not, because really, what good will come of those comments, right? It's not like any of them were trying to persuade me. And so what are they doing but making themselves feel better by, writing some sort of vindicative message that defends their preconceptions, as opposed to saying, oh, I might need to reconsider this kind of thing. Not a single one of those comments was, oh, you've made me reconsider this, or oh, like let's
How many comments were in response to your comment?
30.
Okay.
And the first one, the negative comment, the first one that I read, my post had 30 thumbs up. His had like 120.
Holy shit.
So I think that's an indication, and it was very interesting too because mine was posted right up at the top, but you could tell it doesn't show the number of thumbs down, but you can tell by indicated the number of thumbs down by the position that it moves in the level of the comments. So it was very interesting to me to see, yes, a lot of people were thumbs downing my comments and thumbs upping people who were bashing what I had to say. And it's one of those things where I'm not mad about it. I'm not upset about it. It doesn't really it hasn't affected my sleep one iota because their opinions don't really matter anything to me. So why should I dwell on them kind of attitude? But it is revealing to me because I like doing random things like that where it's just like, yeah, maybe once in a while I'll post just a comment and see what comes back and see what sort of what the feedback, what the vibe is in a particular area of conversation. And when you see that sort of feedback, it makes me so sad. It really does. I mean, the fact that within an hour of me posting that comment, there were a dozen people who had responded to a comment on a YouTube video. Who, these are not bots. These are people who are literally typing what is on their heart in that moment. Like, they are real people typing real feelings. But if that is their initial gut reaction and instinct, it's kind of alarming, I have to say. But I don't know hearing all of this, what is your sort of assessment of the situation?
Well, to kind of answer your question, I don't know when I started doing this, but I started a lot of when I hear things before immediately voicing an opinion, I keep quiet as much as I can to just continue listening and not say anything, because then let's say if you're in a group of people and you're listening to people's arguments, it's just like you almost stop and think to yourself, do you even hear what you're saying? Because you don't make any sense.
Do you hear what you're saying? What a salient comment.
And and if you do it enough times, people will be like, people notice that you don't say anything. And it kind of gives you time and thought to kind of think about what you're going to say. Oh, I was going to say this, but this person said it and actually sounds really dumb. So I really enjoy taking time to think before speaking, unless I'm fucking around and making a joke, you know what I'm saying? But in certain scenarios,
for serious issues.
I think also people sometimes feel like when when a response is requested, that they respond right away without taking the time
no
to think.
filter,
Like when we
no...
interviewed Elliot Hulse, and we would ask him a question, and you would say like, okay, what we're trying to say is this, but the reason he didn't answer right away is because he stopped and he took several moments to think about how he wanted to respond to a question rather than just answering it right away.
But I think that goes to the sense that even in an instance like that, a lot of times when you're engaging people over the interwebs, it has to do with maintaining control. Like, people are always interested in sort of maintaining control of their own.
And I'm okay also, especially when you bring things to light, I'm okay admitting, oh, you know what, I think my, opinions can't really be right or wrong. They're just these intrinsic things, you know what I'm saying? But I'm okay saying, oh, this is how I thought about this. I should give this perspective a different view. I don't feel the need to immediately throw up walls of defense when my opinion or my ideology is challenged.
Yeah. And I think that I mean, and I think that is something that happens pretty much. I don't see how it necessarily happens over the internet. It has to happen on an interpersonal, like, relational basis. You have to have a relationship with somebody in order to be open enough to accept their criticism. You're not going to accept criticism from somebody you don't know or don't trust or don't respect.
Right.
Like, you have to have that rapport. And, it goes to... So that's the negative part of the internet. The positive part of the internet, like, I work Ray's channel. I see the comments. They're 95% positive, glowing, like, supportive. Like, that is the great part of the internet. But it's non-controversial, right? It allows people to let their guards down, and with Ray's attitude of, like, I am a flawed human being who is simply trying to do the best that he can, other people say, oh my goodness, he's not trying to be better than me. He's simply trying to be.
Right.
And that allows me to open up to him. And so you see on that end, like, the openness that the internet offers. But the only real growth that I've seen when it comes to a relational connection is in person. And I look to Ray and just countering some of his sort of perceptions. Like, for example, liberals want to take your guns away is probably, like, the biggest thing that he would believe on a general basis. Like, liberals want to take my... Yeah, he said that countless times. And I was able to finally have a conversation with him where I said, listen, I'm a liberal. I hang out with liberals. Like, I know liberals like the back of my hand. Liberals are... Yeah, I am a liberal. And in all of my years of being a liberal and being involved in politics, never once in my entire life have I heard another liberal saying they want to take your guns away. The only people who have ever said they want to take your guns away are conservatives saying liberals want to take your guns away. Those are the only people who have ever made that claim. No liberal has ever made that claim. And so, like, when I said that to him, he's like, oh, like, because all he had heard is the conservative perspective, which is liberals want to take your guns away, liberals want to take... And I'm saying, I'm a liberal. I don't... And all my friends are liberals. We do not want to take your guns away. Like, that is not what we want. We want to prevent criminals and psychopaths from owning guns. Like, reasonable and rational things that even you would be able to agree with. Like, we just want a safer world, and we don't want to take away guns from law-abiding citizens because we have a Second Amendment. And I saw this, like, look in his eye where he was like, wait, like, you just presented me with information that I've never had in my...
He never would have come across ever.
That he would have never... Not only never come across... Like, he may have come across it, but he would have never listened in the way that, like, you saw his head tilt and his eyes squint, and he was thinking and processing. And whether or not that has a lasting impression, it doesn't matter. That would never have been possible unless we had that sort of relational connection and having that conversation in person where it's not a delayed reaction. You get to see those instantaneous facial, things of, like, you're engaged, like you and you're able to process, like, you're able to navigate through complex situations by saying, we're both friends. We're both in this together. We're not against each other. We're trying to understand. And if that basis is the fundamental understanding of the relationship, then like, I mean, shit, I've learned so much from him. And like, I know things about conservatives and hold empathy and compassion for conservatives in a way that I have never in 1,000 years thought that I would be able to, simply by listening to what he has to say. And that is such a beautiful thing, man.
Yeah, the internet, you can dismiss things and just exit out of a box if you don't like it. Rather, with a person, you kind of have to, especially if you know them, like, oh, you can't run away. Or you have to, when they say, what do you think? It's like, oh, I actually now have to elicit a response, as opposed to just changing my social media form and going to something else.
Exactly. And it's like social media can be a spark to, like, if you find something like grinds your gears, you can engage that, and it should be engaged on an interpersonal level where it extends outside the digital medium into actual physical human contact. Mm-hmm. Like, and I don't know. I mean, I think that the beauty of social media can be that it can connect you with people with disparate beliefs, but the actual work takes place afterwards. Like, we're all caught up in this, like, first step. Like, we can't deny that we as a culture have a problem, mm-hmm. like, with social media and communication. Like, the first step to recovery is what? Is
it? Admitting defeat or something like that, right?
You got it, baby. Admitting defeat. That is exactly where it comes down to. And that's the approach that I take when I experience things like this, when, you know, it's just like, it's a human world, man. I can't really sum up more than, I don't know. I'm sorry, it's a human world is about as comprehensive as I can get with this dialogue, so.